Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public, and welcome to our April 13th council meeting. I'd like to start by advising you that this meeting is being audio, video recorded, and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about that, you can contact the clerk's office. And before we start, a few housekeeping issues. I am struggling very much with Wi-Fi signal tonight. So if I am not able to, if I freeze or I'm kicked out of the meeting, Councillor Nicol will take over chairing the meeting. And then what if the feed starts to get bad again, what I'll probably try to do too is just stop my video so that I can continue participating. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then I would ask Councillor Arsadi, please, if she would please do the land acknowledgement for us this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship, my honor. The Town of Innisfil acknowledges that the Town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledged that this land is the traditional territories of the first people of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe people of Buzalay First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Arsadi. I was also neglectful in extending regrets from the Deputy Mayor this evening. But we do have quorum, so we will call this meeting to order. We'll go to item number 2, which is the open forum, and we've had no participants that have registered for the open forum tonight. So next we will go to item 3.1, and that is the recommendation that the agenda be approved as printed. And I would ask that Councillor Ices and Councillor Van Berkel move and second the motion. Thank you. It's on the floor. Is there any agenda repair required for this evening? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next, I would ask if there's any disclosures of interest, pecuniary or conflict of interest from any member of council on any of the items on tonight's agenda. I'm seeing no hands, but if one does become apparent to you during our conversation, please make it known to the clerk's office at that time. And then we'll go on to section 5, which is presentations and petitions. And we do have 2 this evening. And so we'll start with item 5.1, and that was an annual update from Matthews House Hospice. So I would ask members from Matthew House who are presenting to please turn on your audio and video, and feel free to begin whenever you're ready. And welcome to Town of Innisfil virtually.
Thank you. Your Worship, to Council, it's my great pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Kim Woodland, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Matthews House. I've been to chat with you before. So this is just an annual update on what's happening at Matthews House Hospice. And as you know, we're a center of excellence for hospice and palliative care in the South Simcoe and beyond region. And if we could go to the next slide, I'll just show you a little map of almost our service area. This is really the bullseye. I actually think some of this is over Lake Simcoe, so I hope, you know, we would go there too if we needed to provide support to our community. And if you just have a little look there, that sunshiny spot is our municipality and the town of Innisfil. So we're happy to be here again this year. It's been a long couple of years in the pandemic, and glad to be almost recovering, I guess we could say, from our adventure in pandemic management. And just here to say that Matthew's House is here to help. This is a map. It's the Ontario Health Central region. All of the hospices that you can see, so all of those dots, we're the one with the sunshine in the middle there. We're right in the middle of the health region now, which is a change for us. Usually we're on the outside borders, but here we are. We're right in the center of it all, and very pleased to provide this region with service. So next slide. All right, so as mentioned, the Center of Excellence for Hospice and Palliative Care. And when people hear the word hospice, they get all scared. And so we've learned a lot over the last few years. We did build that new facility in Alliston in 2018, and we've been working steadily on spreading our wings, making sure we're providing support in the whole region. And what we've learned is that a lot of people think, oh, I'm not ready for hospice. I'm not there yet. They kind of think death and dying when they hear the word hospice. So there's some patient fears out there. They don't know what it is that we do. Often healthcare workers are reluctant to talk to people who might need support of a hospice and the work that we do. And so one of the big things that we've been working on since really settling into our hospice is to say, our new hospice is to educate everyone about what it is that we do. And we want people to know that what hospice is about is people deciding to live fully till it's too late. We don't want people to do that, decide to not live fully until they actually are dying. So next slide. So one of the myths of hospice is that it's all about dying. However, the focus is actually on living until you die. And the most important thing is the quality of life for the people in our community. And next slide. So, you know, Matthew's House's model for hospice is the F words here. So the F words for the services that we're providing for the Innisfil community are all about these things, and it might surprise you. There might be some people here who are surprised about this. So we think of it as, you know, all about fitness, being able to actively participate, friendships, family, fun, and future, thinking about the future and what your wishes are and how you want to proceed, even if you are dealing with a life-threatening illness or a life-limiting illness or, you know, dying in your near future. So those are the F words that we live by, and those are the items that we focus on developing our programs for all of the neighborhoods and communities around us. So next slide. And so it looks kind of like this. Most of the work we do is about compassionate communities. So it's about supporting social programs in every community across South Simcoe. Those are most of the people that we serve on any one given year, about 4,000 people. So it's, and most of them are in that top part of this triangle here, actively living in their community, and we're supporting them to do so, keeping healthy and as well as they can be to do it. And then, you know, if they need us to, we'll provide increased support at both home, and also we do have 10-bed residents situated in the hospice in Alliston, and these days it's quite a busy place. The beds are full most of the time. Next slide. So these are the sorts of people who we serve. These are mainly the people we serve. They're people who are surviving and thriving. Lots of cancer survivors receiving support for many years through hospice programs. And next slide. We also serve people like Earl who are trying to live right now and who have a caregiver who is helping them to do so. Loads of people with health problems like Parkinson's disease, ALS, even, COPD, so breathing issues, that kind of thing. And loads of people who have memory problems and their caregiver needs help and support about that so they don't become exhausted. The next slide. And surprisingly enough, a very much growing group of children and youth who are receiving support. And I don't know about you, but I hear lots about lots of our teenagers and older kids who are feeling like life's not worth living. And so the hospice is there to make sure they feel like that life is worth living and how to go about feeling like getting out of bed every day. So there you go. Those are the sorts of people who are in those, almost 4,000 people that we serve. Next slide. So if we have a look at Innisfil on any one given day, we're serving in that top triangle, so the compassionate communities, social support programs, and so on, about 98 people in Innisfil, 62 people for health and wellness. This is right now. 30 people are receiving in-home support, and this past year we served 10 people in our 10-bed residence. And the thing about this is we want this to be more. So the team was just telling me today that we're providing a series of in-services at the library there in Innisfil again this year, and they're doing it in person, which is terrific. So we're hoping that council, when you're talking with people, you'll spread the word that Matthew's House is there. We're at the Rizzardo Center, we're at the library, and I want to talk a little bit more about what the possibilities are for the future, but we're supporting your community. And next slide. So as you can see, hospice is more than people in your community, in our community there in Innisfil might be thinking. And it is all about mental health, most of what we do. But it's not the diagnosable kind. It's about the day-to-day kind, about feeling like getting out of bed and having good company and feeling productive still, even if you feel like miserable with cancer treatments or whatever it may be, or you need help or support at home so that your family can still have a family life. It's the day-to-day living kind of mental health that we're up to here, and we're supporting our communities to think about. Next slide. So I want to introduce an idea. It's called the Warm Door Project, and we're hoping to open a door, a place where people can drop by locally, because our problem is, and specifically is that it's a very, very rural region. We do have some big towns and some small villages, but services are not all that accessible. We've got a transportation problem. It's not that easy for a family caregiver, for instance, to drive all the way to Alliston so that they can participate in a support program if they have someone who can't be left alone at home, that sort of stuff. So we want to open a door, a place in every little town and corner of the South Simcoe region where people can drop in for programs and services, or just a cup of tea and some company, someone to talk to. It's everybody's business, and we've particularly been aware of that during the pandemic. lots of isolated people who are not feeling very well. And the only way we can think of that we can help is if we're just a little bit more local in our region, in the schools, in the workplaces, but also having a warm door where people can just drop by for help and support. So next slide. Well, that's just a little picture of the kind of stuff that goes on. So next slide. So the Warm Door project is not about dying, it's about living. And we're hoping to work with our partners at Hospice Simcoe, because we do share the region and work back and forth together with all sorts of things. And the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County yes, we're going to use some volunteers. We'll have trained professionals and support at Warm Door, but we're hoping to open something in one of the towns in Innisfil, ideally Alcona, and share that program space to provide really great social service for the community. So just putting that pitch in to council through the mayor that we would like to talk more if there's something available that is shareable space that's within walking distance for some people and a short drive for others in the municipality. And so next slide. And also, and I think this is almost my last one, we're making way to be not only talking to you guys, but also making sure we have a real presence in your town. So we are so thrilled to be saying that in a couple weeks' time at the Rotary Park there, the Rotary Trail in Innisfil, the first ever time there'll be a hike for hospice supported by the Rotary Club in Innisfil. And so this is a little bit of an invitation if you have the time on May 1st. It's the first Sunday of May, and it's a national hike that happens every year in support, and in particular this year at the end of a long 2 years. We're hoping that it's a real social time for families and friends to come out and walk a little way in memory of someone or in honor of someone special who has done something great for them over the last couple of years, and have some fun and raise a little money for a good cause. So there you go. Very thrilled to be in Innisfil this year, as well as the town of Adjournment. So there we go. And I think the next slide is just an invitation to talk to those you know, make sure they understand that Matthews House Hospice is there in Innisfil in all the neighborhoods and communities, and we're here to support. And when they're ready, and we hope sooner than later, make sure they don't hesitate to give us a call. We're here to help. And thank you very much for your attention tonight, Mayor Dolan. And if there's any questions, I welcome them.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Woodland, for that presentation. Always appreciate hearing about the good work of Matthews House. Questions and comments from members of council? Councillor Sadi?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Woodland, for your presentation and the information to council and the public. And it's, it's wonderful to see the support systems that are in place for residents that are going through a very difficult time in their life, whether it's for themselves or a family member. And the more services and support, the better. So thank you for doing that. A question I saw on your chart there, something that has come up more in conversations and requests in our community. You showed end of life. Is that a support mechanism, or do you, in partnership with Hospice Simcoe, arrange requests for end of life assistance? people are just wondering who to contact besides their physician for that. I know there's forms they
Right.
have to fill in, but would they contact hospice?
They can absolutely contact hospice, both Hospice Simcoe and ourselves and anyone. There's an alliance of hospices in the county of Simcoe. So there's a hospice in most of the big towns, along with our center in South Simcoe, and anyone can contact any one of the hospices and we'll help them through whatever they're choosing to do or wanting to do. So
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
it's just a phone call away for support and help through that process. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the pandemic has changed the way a lot of people are having family members with funerals changing and not having them.
Mhm.
And then also requesting more assistance and services within their own home. So
Oh.
thank you as being one of those that provides that. It certainly helps all the families, and personal experience of a friend who went through that. So thank you.
Mhm. Well, for sure, at home and also in the residences around the county. So, anyone can call any one of the hospices and we'll help.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, I just want to thank you again for your presentation, and we're looking forward to the Rotary Trail being part of the fundraising events for Matthew's House. So thank you again, and we do have a recommendation, and I would ask Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Waters to move and second the recommendation that's on the screen. Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much, and look forward to learning more about hospice in the future.
My pleasure.
And now we'll move on to item 5.2. 5.2 is the Innisfil Library Board is coming to talk to us about the library master plan. And I welcome members of the library board to please turn on your video and audio, and welcome, and please start whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor Dolan, councillors, staff and community. I'm Anne Smith, the chair of the Innisfil Public Library Board. I'm delighted to be here tonight to provide council with an overview of the library's new master plan. Next slide, please. I'll briefly share some information about the process we have gone through over the last year. Next slide, please. A master plan articulates the community's vision of future library service. It will guide the library in achieving optimal space, technology and service levels for Innisfil's growing community over the next 20 to 30 years, as well as ensuring that adequate financial resources are available to meet these goals. The last time the library completed a master plan was in 2013. And as you can agree, there has been a lot of change in the last 8 years, including a very different vision for the future of Innisfil. Innisfil Idea Lab and Library doesn't work in isolation, but rather works collaboratively with our municipal partners to ensure municipal and library visions are aligned. These relationships ensure that the library and town are maximizing taxpayer dollars to benefit the entire community. This master plan provides a framework to ensure that library services will meet residents' needs as the community grows. To ensure a cohesive approach to planning, this master plan was developed to integrate with other municipal plans and considers major developments driving the growth of our community, including the orbit development surrounding the new GO station and the development of an RVH South campus. Next slide, please. The most important part of the process was hearing from our community members, key stakeholders and partners. Input gathered through various consultations was a critical component to this process. Thank you to all who took the time to share your ideas for the future of the library. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce you to our master plan consultants and turn it over to them to carry on the presentation. Stephen Abram from Lighthouse Consulting and the team from LGA Architectural Partners, Brock James and Daniel Comerford.
Next slide, please. Next slide. So one of the most exciting things about Innisfil is you have a nationally and frankly internationally renowned library system. You've shown some of the most innovative, world-leading ways to support STEAM education, to support entrepreneurs. It's a community-driven system, but the demand is just going through the roof. You don't have enough places to put all the people you're going to have, and people love their library, as we discovered from our many surveys and focus groups. Next slide, please. So right now you've got 4 branches, about 3,400 square meters. And the Lakeshore and the Cookstown branches are fit for purpose. They need some minor renovations to go through their review cycle as part of the master plan, and those recommendations have been made. Churchill and Shroud branches are insufficient to meet the community needs. One, they're end of life or not in the right place. There's a number of reasons, but we've made recommendations that you'll see later. Next slide, please. So as for planning for tomorrow, we had to get a clear picture of what tomorrow was going to look like. Next slide, please. And this is a view into 20, 30 years from now. We already know the local trend is libraries about more than books. We're about the behaviors we want in our community and what reading and engaging with our neighbors really drives, and how to create spaces for engagement and reduce isolation, support education, academic success, curate culture, which we know is in a lower position in Innisfil than is desirable or that Innisfil wants. And we need to look at social vitality and well-being. How do we make sure that neighbors meet neighbors? You're about to have a huge influx of new Innisfilians. How do we orient them to the community? And what's the best confidential, stigma-free, welcoming place for entering your community and finding opportunities? Next slide, please. So here's your population projection, which I know you've seen a number of times, but you're going to more than double. And that's going to be a lot of building permits, a lot of housing, different types of housing, and increased diversity. If any recommendation I'm more sure of, you're going to have a highly educated, very diverse community of Canadians, largely centered on your 2 highways and the Orbit Hub. But what's really important is what we see in the next slide. You need 1 square foot per person to meet current library standards, especially when we look at the cultural spaces involved. This is the same standard you use for Cookstown, and it's our recommendation that you stick to that standard. So the next slide. This shows what it's going to look like if this is the do nothing slide. If you don't build new branches, your branches are going to be so crowded that they're going to be pushing people away, because people will be wanting to go to, in particular, the Alcona and the Cookstown branches, and there's not going to be enough space for them. They're not going to fit. And so you need to add about 50,000 square feet by 2051. And this will be timed and driven by the decisions you make as a council around your housing development and your commercial development plans for building permits, and when you're going to add housing for 15,000 in single family homes, townhouses, and towers, that justifies a whole branch in that area. So since the projected view for something like Orbit and a little bit around the municipal campus as the centrally located, geographically centered of Innisfil, you're going to see the opportunity for phased development in order to stay within the guidelines we're recommending around affordability, cost effectiveness, and cost efficiencies. Next slide, please. We read, you are from my opinion, and I think from LGA's, you are a very well-managed town. You have the full suite of studies, and you've got a number of master plannings all aligning all at the same time for you to make well-informed decisions. And we're very hopeful that the information we're giving you tonight, and in the full report, and in all the background reports, dozens of them, there is data and information and recommendations there that align with your vision of the community that you're building. And the community building activities of Innisfil are quite amazing. And you're well aware of where you have shortages and where you have success and where you have strengths. And the library, as a partner and as a placemaking activity for amplifying the benefits of living in a place like Innisfil, can be a great asset that can be managed to grow your vision faster. Next slide, please. So we've got a few recommendations. Next slide. So there's what it looks like now. You can see here we're recommending that you repurpose the Churchill Branch. There are a number of options there that we have lightly not recommended, but pushed for further investigation, so that you can you have an opportunity there to create a nice culture space, a nice park. But that branch is costing the library system too much, given the traffic it has, and it needs to be a more event-oriented space. So we're recommending more event-oriented spaces. So now I'm going to push it over to Daniel and Brock to look at the new recommendation. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Daniel, you're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, the last slide had basically a map of the locations for future branches. So picking up on what Stephen said, you have your existing branches, Lakeshore and Cookstown, which are great, fit for purpose. Shroud we'll talk about as a replacement branch in a minute because of its end of life. And then there are a series of new branches. Basically, these branch locations respond to growth, where there are people and where they can serve people, or where they can have, they're strategically located around the community so that they're serving the most possible people today and tomorrow. Next slide, please. So touching on some system-wide recommendations, in a moment we'll look at branch by branch, but these are some recommendations that pertain to all branches. Basically, number one, the system needs to grow in proportion to the people that will be there. You can't have a disproportion or else you'll have overcrowding, as Stephen mentioned a moment ago, and there are implications to that in terms of lifelong learning and other vitality metrics that Stephen can elaborate on more. So new branches are required, and we're going to look at that today. Enhancing circulation is critical. As Stephen mentioned, Innisfil is an incredibly successful library system. Circulation is one area that can be improved. Doing so, you can do this via innovative curation of displays and programming. And so that's something that pertains to all branches. All the branches, there's a number of them, and it's important that they work together to offer complementary programming opportunities. So one branch might specialize in entrepreneurial incubation. Another branch might specialize in health and well-being, and they'll all work together to give you a host of resources. We're looking, of course, across the age offerings, everything from, you know, babies and toddlers to up to older adults. And what that means programmatically differs from place to place. Of course, the cultural component is very significant. Innisfil Library leads that. And so allowing more space, allowing the right space for that cultural programming to occur is critical for the library system today and tomorrow. And then, of course, ensuring that diversity inclusion strategies are available, especially as Innisfil grows, and especially in this time and place where that is very important. Next slide, please.
Daniel, just before you get into touch on each location, I just want to underline something that that the study is a 30-year study. It does go into 2051. And so when we are recommending these branches, they're very much meant to be in step with the development in Innisfil and happening in a phased way. And after Daniel goes through these, each location, we're going to talk about that phasing.
Absolutely. So we've kind of established a vision for the overall system. There's a lot more detail in the report, but we have the branches set forth, and now we want to, the master plan starts to focus in on the scale of the branch and the scale of the neighborhood, and how the library branch can really partner and complement some of the, you know, the many unique communities in Innisfil, because Innisfil has many unique and different and interesting places, and so the library can really play a role in each of those places. So this is just a few highlights from each of the branch recommendations. So Lakeshore in Alcona is incredibly successful, has an amazing makerspace. Only minor enhancements are needed here. The most significant thing is probably the Innisfil Town Square. So it's important that the library interface with that town square. It encourages you know, positive frontage onto that town square. And so we've shown a strengthened connection through the library from the parking lot and connecting to the town square. There's a number of other recommendations for this branch as well. Next slide, please. The Shroud Branch is currently located in the community center and arena. It's the branch itself is not fit for purpose. It's too small, and the building is near the end of its life. So there's an incredible opportunity here, which is to use have the library play a key role in establishing a new kind of center of Shroud, a new village common. So what that means is that the library can have a very prominent location on the corner of Yonge and Victoria, and it can overlook a new green space, a village common, which can be used for outdoor programming and can also be interfaced by the recreation center and other development. So you start to create a bit of a village, and that's what this image on the right speaks to. Next slide, please. The Churchill Branch, as we noted, this building, it's not accessible. And so the approach is to decommission it as a library, but to investigate other potential options for what this might become with community members, seeing what might be needed in this area. And the library can help lead that process. Next slide, please. The Cookstown Branch is also incredibly successful. It's very, very much fit for purpose, and so only minor enhancements are required here. Two highlights are, for example, changing an existing staff room into a meeting room, because there's a significant shortage of meeting room space in Innisfil, and so that can play a role. And then also the hallway that separates the community center from the library can become a kind of an active spine that's curated with books and furniture to help increase circulation in the library system. Next slide, please. The municipal campus, a library branch in this location is basically at the geographic center of Innisfil, and it's co-located next to some really, really significant institutions and destinations, the Rizzardo, the YMCA, the Future RVH, and so on. So having a branch here offers terrific co-location opportunities. Having it front onto Yonge Street to be very high profile is important. The library read is very prominent to people in Innisfil. And then toward the right side of the library branch, we've shown a village common that can actually help to connect to the Rizzardo and to the Y and be shared by those spaces. So you have at the center of this branch, you have a green space rather than a parking lot, which could be really great. Next slide, please. The Orbit, and more particularly the GO station, is going to have one of the most significant movements of people, business, and ideas in Innisfil very shortly. And so it's critical that the branch actually have a presence in that GO station, both for convenience, but also to help support the people who are moving in and out of that station, whether it be entrepreneurial incubation activities or just the community members that are moving there. It's critical that the library be iconic and be at the heart of this new community. It's a significant tract of land, and so the library should be up front and center. It's important that public and civic life is paramount and at the center of these new developments and everyday life in Innisfil.
Daniel, I would just add that what we're proposing is that the library have a presence in the actual GO station in terms of kiosk or hold locker, and that might be the first presence that it has in Orbit, and that an actual branch would follow and keep pace with residential development. And we're actually considering that there might be two phases to this library branch. There might be a first phase, and then further down, 20 or 30 years out, when the residential density is being established, another phase to the library, just again to keep pace with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Brock.
And I just add, Daniel, that you'll notice that we have a lot of notes there about village commons and connection to trails. Our COVID learning was that we need more outdoor break the box thinking on libraries, and that we can create opportunities for healthy living, the outdoor lifestyles of Innisfilians, and a village common to create. You don't really have a downtown. So how do we create common spaces for people to collect and learn and play together and, strawberry socials, whatever. So it creates a vital dynamic that by its mere presence.
Thank you, Stephen Brock. Next slide, please. So in the Southeast, there are a number of communities that are going to experience growth, and a library branch location has been planned here since the last master plan, actually. And so this would be a small scale community branch, and it would really, be anchored along a main street, potentially co-located next to a recreation center if there was one planned, and really just become a bit of a hub for the community with a strong street presence, main street presence. Next slide, please. Very similarly, in the Northeast, again, there's already been significant growth in the last few years, and more is planned and underway. So again, another community scaled small branch will support these people in the Northeast of Innisfil. Again, having a location on a main street, so it's becomes walkable, highly visible, and is potentially located next to other amenities. For example, a community garden. There's all sorts of options here. And it could, of course, it's very important that it serve all ages, and there's significant seniors population in the Northeast. So, that can be taken account into detailed programming on how the library can best support those community members. Next slide, please. Of course, every library doesn't have to look like a library. We're also considered how library kiosks, mobile trucks, holds lockers, basically other forms of nomadic structures and libraries can exist throughout communities. They can potentially be moved around and can be really a smart means to learn how a community responds. You can test out a library in one location. If it proves immensely popular, perhaps that's a strong evidence that a more permanent library should be placed there. Next slide, please. So looking into phasing and implementation, it's important we consider, as Brock mentioned, that this is a 30-year plan. 30 years is a very long time. 30 years ago, Innisfil had half the population it does today, and had the library system was around a quarter of the size. And so it's easy to be overwhelmed by the number of branches shown here, but in a way, it's about keeping pace with the growth that's projected by the province and making sure that the library system develops in lockstep with that. Next slide, please. So just looking at this chart here, present day, we have about 41,000 as a design population, 37,000, 38,000 square feet of library space, and that achieves 0.9 square foot per person, which links back to that metric that Stephen mentioned earlier. And so you just see how this plays out over time. Into 2051, you can see the population increases to 86,850. Library follows suit, and we can hit our target. So now we can look at how this might actually unfold. Next slide, please. So this is just one potential way to show how the library might develop over time to accommodate the growing population. And it's meant to be a flexible tool that can be reevaluated as you monitor growth, as you monitor development, as you look for opportunities for branches around Innisfil. So just starting at present day, you can see we have Lakeshore, Cookstown, Shroud, and Churchill. We're all familiar with these branches. Looking at 2026, wherever it's green, it's indicating that that's new or enhanced library space. So Lakeshore, Alcona, again, no extension, but just minor enhancements of the space. Likewise with Cookstown. Suggestion here is that the Shroud Branch be developed as the current facility it's in is nearing the end of its useful life. The orbit station will be built, and so a minor presence in that station will be critical from day one to really establish a strong presence. And then the southeast location to be determined, of course, but a small community scale branch in the southeast. And that will just be enough to keep you with the projected growth that's forecasted for Innisfil. So looking to 2031, it would be the first phase of the orbit station, orbit and go library branch. In 2041, the municipal branch would come online. And in 2051, we'd see the second phase of orbit and potentially the northeast library branch be developed. And again, so this just gets you to 86,000 square feet, which is just keeping pace with the population. The risk, of course, is if the library branches don't keep pace, the overall system size doesn't keep pace with population growth, overcrowding will occur. So obviously meant to be very flexible and to be reconsidered over the 30-year time frame, but this is a starting point to consider. So I think I'll just, before I turn it over, we turn it over for questions. Stephen, Brock, if I've missed anything, feel free to add something now.
It's great, Daniel. Thank you.
I think we should reinforce that in the full report and in the background report, we've acknowledged where the library can partner, not deduplicate, and amplify the social services distances in Innisfil. So the town has been very smart about Rizzardo and RVH and how we can amplify that with a health information centric municipal campus branch. We can do the same thing. And I was inspired by the first presentation tonight, where there are a number of diversity, equity, belonging, teen disengagement, senior social isolation. There's all the things that libraries can do well and do it stigma-free and confidential. So all of that is base services of a library, but we're recommending buildings that contain the spaces that allow that to happen. Private counseling rooms, tutoring rooms, fun teen spaces, fireplaces for seniors to sit and meet their friends, all good. Brock?
I'm good. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. So I want to thank Chair Smith and Brock and Daniel and Stephen for being here with us this evening. And I'll ask council if they have any questions. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I did have a couple of questions and comments. I know we're just receiving this, so this is kind of a guiding document, but I understand that with growth, we collect DCs, which in turn help fund our libraries. And due to geography, I see how the proposed locations could make sense. But to me, I wonder if it might seem a bit excessive to have freestanding locations pretty much every second line, one at the 4th, one at the 6th, 2 at the 8th, and then another at the 10th. Barrie only has 2 libraries for 150,000 people. And Mississauga, which is the same size of Innisfil geographically, has 16 for 828,000 people, which is about 50,000 people per location. How do we justify 7 locations for 50,000 people in the next 30 years?
So I'll respond to your example of Barrie first, because Brock and I developed Barrie's master plan for libraries. Barrie Barrie and Thunder Bay have the largest space deficit in all of Ontario. So they now have 3 branches because they built one of the ones we recommended, and it's on the book for 5 more branches over the next 20 years. They have a significant deficit, and library, schools, and community centers are the 3 things people choose for quality of life to choose to move. You are going to have a younger cohort of people, more diverse, coming in, and the schools, libraries, and parks and rec are going to be infinitely important to sustain the value of the houses and the value of the communities. So that's one comment. The second comment is library standards have been built for a reason, and we have this issue that electronic space now takes more space than the old book model space did. And that's an opportunity. But when we look at more work from home people, that supporting that kind of WeWork entrepreneurial startups that you're going to have quite a few of, because there's a real good reason to live at the Orbit and only have to go to Toronto once a week. And but they're going to need services and facilities to meet and that sort of stuff. And this is supporting people's whole lives, and it supports why they read. So why are they reading that? Oh, well, they're developing a marketing plan, or they're using a database, or they need to print something, or they need a scanner. This is what Innisfil pioneered long ago, starting with teens, but now they're seeing more and more adults and commercial enterprises, especially your small and medium-sized enterprises, your retailers, that you have a deficit of, that you're encouraging more street fronts. That's something that the library can support them to make sure that they move to Innisfil and become successful, so that you get the pizza shops and the dress stores and all that cool stuff. But they need the support mechanisms there, and you have an innovation space for startups, but you need just that regular space for normal run-of-the-mill businesses to make that happen. And the library can do that in a cost-effective way. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Nicol.
Follow up, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, that does help, and that kind of leads into my next comment. As here in Innisfil, we are one town, one team. I wonder what happened to the direction past councils had provided to incorporate multi-use facilities to provide better synergies rather than having standalone buildings as suggested here. To me, multi-use destinations are utilized so much more, and the savings in construction, maintenance, and even staffing is very real. Even our Parks Master Plan has recommendations to engage the library for multi-purpose spaces. Is this something that can be tweaked in this master plan?
it could be tweaked. It's an issue of hours and alignment. You will notice that we've recommended it be around a village common, so that nearly all of the branches we recommended are tied to a community center. They're tied to a common, and they're tied to other activities. We wanted to make sure that the library had the street front because it blows out the budget to have to market it when it's hidden away. So you'll notice we put a couple of main street facings and young street facings so that new people to Innisfil would drive past it and say, oh, there's the library, without having to have advertising budgets and a lot more marketing. So we've tried to create a village common that we thought fit better than the box where everything's hidden inside it. And community centers tend to have solid walls. So all of our focus groups show people wanted bright light windows. And if you look at Shroud, it's quite a dark place. The Shroud Library Branch, I mean. So some of the thinking, and we are not against connecting it to a community center if the savings can be proven, and that's what we recommended for Springwater. But as we learned, we need more of this outdoor space and competition for outboard space. When we separate a common from a sports field, it keeps it open and ready for use and picnics. And Shroud is a nice little village where it becomes a walkable branch at different times of the day.
Ms. Kuchamari, did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through you to Councillor Nicol, I would just like to also comment that the co-location of facilities has been discussed and would still be key to the planning for the future. So not only are the plans aligned and we will be integrating the master plans, those conversations will be happening when we go forward with any planning of new facilities.
And we were very lucky to have, insights from the placemaking study that Parks and Rec was doing. And so we've recommended branches that are on your new trails network and connect up to the healthy living strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions and comments from members of council? Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I wanted to maybe expand a little bit on Councillor Nicol's comments, where he suggested that it made a lot of sense to have, the spaces used for different needs in the town. I was also wondering if in the consultations there was any talk about partnerships. I'm thinking, we're proposing a branch in the municipal campus where there's going to be a very health hospital centered area. We're thinking about the orbit where we want to be, front and center with the GO station. Are there other organizations, whether they're business or government, that we could partner with to kind of have similar goals with what we want with our facilities and our needs for our population?
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks, Your Worship. Absolutely, Councillor Ices. That was a huge theme in all of our focus groups and in the online survey. And it's one of the major factors that came out was the health services deficit that Rizzardo and now the RVH piece. But how could the library partner with that? We haven't recommended putting a kitchen in the branch on the municipal campus because there's a kitchen in Rizzardo Center that the library could co-program with Rizzardo. We put a collection in there so that the RVH does not need to have a consumer health collection because the library will build and maintain a collection and short programs for certain kinds of arthritis and various things that an urgent care kind of facility like that works with. We did explore the your startup and innovation hubs that are developing in Innisfil, and we felt that that was an appropriate partnership for the orbit, because we think that population will be more of the work from home, starting new businesses that might be global in intent, but whatever. And so we've recommended a number of specializations for a branch. Your system isn't big enough for every branch to have everyone have everything in every branch. So we need to create a destination, like Municipal Hub is a good destination for the better health resources. Every branch would have a small health resources, children's, teens, adults, but certain specialized collections like local history, genealogy, fun stuff will be partnered with, so that the strong feedback we got, not to duplicate, but to amplify, be handled in each branch in as cost-effective a way as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. And it seems that there's a good direction here in terms of growing the library system, which I think is served Innisfil very well. And I think we've had some great staff and some great programming going on. So it's good to see this. I do have 2 points I'd like to make. One is more of a question. Like I agree with almost all the locations that you've picked here. I do have a hard time with the municipal campus one, in terms of that you based all of the locations on population, growing the libraries where populations are. And there's in when I've seen, I don't see a population growing at the campus. It's more a place, it's a destination for medical services, the health services in terms of the why. I guess the part here, I understand how the programming can work with all the partners who are there, so I can appreciate that. My question is that everyone here is going to have to drive, and even if you want to cycle from Alcona, it's quite a cycle from Alcona. The closest place would be Shroud, but Shroud has its own. It will have its own library. So I guess just help me in terms of how you think the library here is going to be populated without driving to it. Can you give me some of your suggestions? And then I have a second point I'd like to make after I hear from what you have to say. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you. What we heard in the focus groups was that your community is a driving community. And we were looking for a space where the most people could drive. And when we were doing our observations, we saw that the biggest traffic hub was the municipal campus, because people were going to the Y, going to City Hall, going to the school, going to the hydro, and it just ended up being a natural confluence of traffic. And then we saw the trails strategy that connected it up. And so I think that it's an opportunity to look at what's happening there. And this one was based on population movement rather than residents.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Your thoughts were. So I just wanted to confirm that's where you're going with that. My other point was in terms of when Councillor Ices was talking about partnerships and that kind of stuff. I was just a point to be made is that by 2051, when the Northeast one is coming, that would be Big Bay Point, I would think, is an opportunity that by that time, I would think Friday Harbor is going to be built out to its max in terms of its number of condos, that it might be an opportunity to plant a seed now in terms of partnering with Friday Harbor to basically build something on Big Bay Point Road there coming into town. And so start that thought process now so that when these permits come through, that we can leverage that opportunity with them in terms of being good community partners. So just planting that seed now. Thank you.
And that's an exit, sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's an excellent strategy and exactly in line with our recommendations, that we build a portable pop-up branch that is a mini branch, a kiosk. It's not just holds lockers, which can be very convenient, but not engaging. And how do we put computers and Wi-Fi and stuff in a site? So we showed you a Newmarket branch that was the picture of that one that opens up out of a box. And what it does is it creates, on a good day, opportunities for people to do self-check and do that sort of stuff. So we can test and learn by doing before making the investment in what that branch might need to be in the Northeast or the Southeast or in other areas. And then that portable branch could go anywhere. It could go into your commercial area during the day when you've got workers there wanting to do stuff. So you're right that this was this kind of kiosk is a testing facility that allows you to gain greater confidence on the decisions you're making for those locations.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't let this one go by. First, I want to thank Ann Smith, the chair of the library board, for her passion and commitment to the library and the presentation today as well with the consultants, your input. And as a member of the library board, just a couple key points for the people in the public that are watching, that this is a 30-year plan that's phased in. I like the idea of the mobile pilots, the kiosks, the holds lockers that are smart innovation for Innisfil, for us to test the library and its location and what its needs are. One thing that we have learned is that an example is the Shroud Library. When you incorporate it into an existing building, the library suffers from any infrastructure needs that are needed in the current building that impact the library itself, especially with aging structure, and also that they're hidden. So Shroud Library is a great example of, if you drive by, you don't even know there's a library there. There's one little notice that says on a large recreation building between the ice rinks and the community center and the curling, that is a door for the library. So I think I'm so excited about the idea that we have libraries that stand out so people can recognize it and be involved, because the libraries, Innisfil libraries, are so community driven and involved in supporting the ongoing changing needs of our residents. And I think that will be key in the future, and exciting to think about a library, starting in the orbit with a little meeting space and opportunity to study as well. It takes libraries outside of the box. So I just wanted to say thank you and look forward to this.
Thank you, Councillor Orsatti. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Van Berkel.
Just a comment, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. It's well received by me anyway. It's very good. But I'm just thinking back, because I've been on council for some time, and I'm sure that Mayor Dolan will concur. Back when our recreation center was built, we went out and we looked at many recreation centers to see what model we liked here. And there were several that had a library in it. And I mean, some had a pretty nice library in it. And when it came back to council, we did a lot of debating over whether we should build a library in this particular rec center that we have now. And it was decided at the time not to, simply because we didn't think there was enough traffic at the time. But I do think we allowed that we seen a rendering of this building that, we could put a library on it. And I'm just back in my mind that at that time we looked at it carefully, and it was taken out for that very reason, that there was no traffic there at the time. And we thought, but maybe in the future we could use one there. So if we go back and look at the renderings or look at some of the initial drawings of the rec center, there's probably something around there with a library on it.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. Your memory is much better than mine. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, I want to thank you all very much, Chair Smith, for your leadership, all the staff at the library, and the consultants for being here today. I think it's one of the things I totally agree about our internationally acclaimed libraries. And I think one of the things that has always served us well is the great relationship between council and the library board. And I can tell you that not all communities share that. So I thank you for working with us. And we always seem to find a way to work together. And I very much appreciate that you so much take the town's vision into the work that you do. So thank you. And with that, I'll ask Councillor Fowler and Councillor Payne if they'll move and second the recommendation that's on the screen. Councillor Fowler, you're good with that? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thanks again for being with us this evening. Next, we'll move on to item 6, which is delegations. We have none this evening. So we'll go to item 7, which are updates from the work that municipal councillors do when they're not at the council table. So any associations, conservation authorities, committees. Councillor Orsatti, I don't want to put you on the spot. I should have given you a heads up, but you were the alternate at the county council yesterday. And I just wondered if you had any comments about that meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. Your worship, wasn't prepared for this. I will just try to go on the fly. Yes, county council, trying to get my thoughts together here. One of the things was how well the county of Simcoe is doing with the waste collection. However, they want to start, we're doing better than other municipalities, and what they want to do also is start an education with the residents throughout Simcoe County on diversions to the landfill sites. So we can, about 50%, I believe, of items that could be going in the green bin are going into, and in the blue bin are going in the garbage. So it's really about trying to continue on with the education for that. The county yesterday was also a workshop on the MCR, the Municipal County Review. And there will be another public open house on that. I don't remember the date. A lot of good information back and forth shared on that. I don't know if there's something that you want to add in particular, Councillor, Mayor, Your Worship. Sorry.
Sorry, sorry, Councillor Orsatti, I should have given you a heads up ahead of time, but no, that was a good overview. The housing supply report, affordable housing supply report, was really good, and I sent a copy to all of council if you wanted to have a look at that. The only thing I wanted to add is, and it wasn't mentioned really in the meeting, but I was involved last week in the launch of a new county tourism Spark mentorship program, which is could be very good for a young upcoming tourism operator in the town of Innisfil. Basically, you give the county your idea, and it's just a 2-page application. You fill it out, and then if you're chosen, it's like a dragon's den, and you compete. And then if you are chosen, your idea not only gets seed funding, but you also get mentored with a local tour operator who can help your vision come true. So I'm really hoping we get some applications from Innisfil. Anyone else have any committees? Councillor Fowler.
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a heads up, everybody, that this year we are having our Pitch-In Day again on May 14th. This year, unlike the previous years, one where it was canceled and one where it was delayed and social distance and whatnot, we're going back to the original system as much as possible. We are going to have 5 fire stations open the morning of, where people can pick up their kits. We're going to have them available at Town Hall. I'm going to be more than likely spending a day out front again, pawning off as many kits as I can to anybody who wants to drive up and pick one up. We're going to have a barbecue. We've got music. We have the library board involved this year. So we're going to have activities outside down at Centennial Park. It's going to be far, far different than what we had last year. And this is something that I think a lot of people will enjoy. And just, it's incredible. The amount of unity that it brings with the town, how it brings everybody together, and it's all for the betterment of where we live. It's just incredible. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other updates from any other members? Seeing none, is there an update from the Emergency Operations Center? Good evening, Ms. Ray.
Hi, Your Worship. Thank you, and through you to Council. Given the ending of the majority of provincial restrictions in March, the Emergency Operations Center decided that April 4th was the appropriate time to end the declared state of emergency in the town of Innisfil. Sorry. The EOC will continue to meet on a monthly basis for the time being to monitor any changes to the COVID situation across Ontario. Staff are in the process of reviewing bylaws that were passed or amended as a result of the pandemic and will be coming to Council with a recommendation report shortly. This week, the Provincial Chief Medical Officer of Health has indicated that we are in a sixth wave and made a strong recommendation for the public to wear masks in all indoor settings. While masking requirements for staff ended on April 4th, masking is still encouraged at town facilities for those that are comfortable. Masking is still required for passengers riding in Innisfil Transit and for those attending the Brazardo Health and Wellness Center in accordance with provincial regulations. Passive screening signage is still up for visitors to our recreational facilities and participants in our indoor programs. The province has released 2 COVID press releases of interest since our last meeting. On April 6th, the Ministry of Health announced that it has expanded eligibility for 4th doses of the COVID-19 vaccine to individuals aged 60 and over starting April 7th. On April 11th, the Ministry of Health announced that it would increase access to COVID antivirals and PCR testing to high-risk individuals. Finally, the GoVax bus is returning to the Innisfil Recreational Complex in the North parking lot on April 24th and May 22nd from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Walk-ins are accepted for the COVID-19 vaccination doses 1, 2, 3, or boosters for eligible individuals.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ray, and I'm hoping that we don't see another 2+ year state of emergency in our lifetimes anyway. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent list. So we'll run through these, and please, if you want to debate, if there needs to be debate or if you need to change the recommendation, refer to committee. And we will start with A1, the special council meeting minutes of March 16th. A2, the council meeting minutes from March 23rd. A3, the special council meeting minutes from March 30th. B1, the summary of the school zone traffic safety advisory committee. I don't want to pull that, but I just want to say that the committee did decide not to have a meeting in April, but we are having a traffic calming open house on April the 27th, if you put that in your calendars. I know traffic calming is probably the #1 complaint that I get from residents. So I hope we get a good turnout for that. C1, the Hewitts Creek Drainage Works, Innisfil Beach Road. Councillor Ices.
I'd like to refer that to committee, please.
Thank you. C2, the Municipal Election 2022 Update to Corporate Resources Use During Election Policy. I just want to highlight this one. This is if you haven't gone through it thoroughly, and if you are either watching and considering to be a candidate for the 2022 election, or if you're a sitting member of council who's thinking of running again, this is something you should bookmark or make a copy of and keep it handy. I can tell you from years of experience that transitioning from a member of council to a candidate is difficult. the rules that come into play as far as, you know, we're used to being the ambassadors of our community. We're used to wearing the logos on our shirt and getting our pictures taken at town hall, and none of those things can happen during election period. Even little things like using a town, like right now I'm on a town laptop. I can't use that town laptop if I was to be a candidate in the next election. I'd have to use my own equipment. So there's tons of information in there, and it's easy to get in trouble. You know, simply like handing out a brochure, campaign brochure at the farmer's market that's on town property. So I urge everybody who's running to make sure that they get a copy of that policy and go through it carefully. Next is C3 and C4 were deferred. So we'll now go to D1, the Cookstown Pavilion update. Councillor Nicol?
Your worship, yeah, I don't need to refer this. I'm just glad to see that this is public information now. I know there was some interest in what was going on with that building, and yes, it's definitely going to be looked at and ideally replaced with the historical nature of what it was. Thank you. Thank
you, and Councillor, and also to assure the public that when that pavilion was built, I think it was the year 2000, there was a time capsule put in the roof, and that time capsule has been retrieved and is at the Cookstown Library branch awaiting, I guess, the replacement. Next item is D2, the spongy moth update, formerly known as the gypsy moth. And that's it for the next is bylaws. We have no bylaws this evening. So S is a correspondence from Ice Corp regarding the Innisfil Onion Fest, June 17th to 19th. I wanted to just say congratulations to Ice Corp for being a recipient of the Simcoe County grant for $16,000 to help support and get this festival underway. And then we have G, correspondence for information, G1 through 8. Councillor Fowler?
Not pulling anything, but in regards to G6, I just would like to personally thank Councillor Van Berkel and the clerk's office and communications. When this was brought to me by Rabbi Zaltzman late last month, I got a glut of information, which I spoke to Councillor Van Berkel with. He helped me guide it in the right direction. We went to the clerk's office. They went to make sure everything was according to procedural bylaw. Communications double checked every fact. So the reason that it was so imperative this year is the day that this education sharing day was based off of a very important rabbi who promoted education even in America, and even got rewarded for it with a Squirrel of Canada back in, I believe, the 80s. And yesterday would have been his 120th birthday. So this is just to show that you can have a long lasting impact when you try to do the right things for the right reasons. So again, thank you everybody who made this a reality and worked so hard to help it put through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And also proclamations that we should point out was Earth Day proclamation, which was April the 22nd. And there was also a proclamation for a National Day of Mourning, which was April 28th. Is April 28th. Forget what month it is. And that is it for proclamations. So then the consent list continued. So we have the one item pulled, and we would have the recommendation then moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Payne. The recommendation is seen on the screen. So pulling item C1, and the rest of the items go to council for final consideration. And now we will go to Councillor Ices. For item C1.
Thank you, Worship.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry, we have to resolve into committee. Why do I always forget that one? Councillor Nickel and Councillor Ices, mover and a seconder to resolve into committee. All those in favor? Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no problem. I was a little late in my intention on pulling this one. So my intention is to not vote in favor of this, so I would like to get some support to bring this to the floor. I believe with our new policies regarding this, that can be done. Councillor Fowler, thank you. So in reading the report, the report cites the Drainage Act as a justification for getting funding for this upgrade of the road, of Innisfil Beach Road. The Drainage Act is a very significant act in Ontario. It allows for drainage projects in mostly agricultural areas to improve farmland, and those costs are then shared throughout the neighbors in the area, because everybody benefits in their farmland when there's access to drainage. So when I read this report, it seems a little bit different in its intention. The county has come to us to say that our road project for Innisfil Beach Road has hit a drainage snag, and we need to do this extra work. And oh, by the way, we're going to use the Drainage Act to fund it. So I have a significant problem with that, as I'm not sure how the landowners benefit from the drainage that is benefiting the road and not the farms around it. So I'm wondering if I could get some comments on the thoughts behind wanting to get the funds from the landowners versus the county for this road project.
Mr. Ninehouse, I was just going to ask if you were with us tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Through your worship to Councillor Ices. So the Section 78 improvement report for Hewitt's Creek is more intended for future abilities to go in and maintain the drain properly. The overall costing of this report is still unaware right now. It will be up to the drainage engineer to determine what the cost of that report might be, and it's also their job to levy it out to, or assess it out to, the benefiting landowners. Again, I'm not the engineer who would be writing the report, but this improvement report is specifically to help the new alignment and drainage for Innisfil Beach Road's reconstruction. So I would assume, again, not the engineer, but I would assume that the majority of the costs would go to the county. And if the engineer sees that there's benefits to the residents upstream, or the landowners upstream, they could be assessed accordingly. Again, the work being included in this, which is the realignment and the abandonment of the old enclosed drain, is strictly for the road reconstruction. So it's to allow the reconstruction to continue and not interfere with any drainage or any future maintenance required.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
So I appreciate that explanation, but upon reading the report, it doesn't read that way to me. It just reads that the $50,000 will be funded from the benefiting landowners. So am I not reading that right, or does there need to be an amendment to this for clarity?
Mr. Ninehouse?
Through you, your worship. So the Innisfil Beach Road, or the county, would be a benefiting landowner. So that's terminology from the Drainage Act that was used. So the road as well as landowners are all considered benefiting landowners within the watershed area. So the intention of this is not to put the cost of this improvement report on the residents strictly. The county would be assessed as well.
Okay, I see in the terminology there how a benefiting landowner could be the county as well. So what you are saying is that section in the Drainage Act refers to this specifically. It's just the specifics that I'm getting bogged down in the details somewhat. I'm wondering if we could, for clarity, put an amendment to the motion where it would say that the funding is likely to be based on the road and not to the agricultural landowners in the area. And I apologize for not having this down prior to this, but it kind of just came up as I read the report here. So would that be appropriate to would that add clarity and not change the intent of the motion in your mind?
Can I just interject here just for a moment to say, is there a time element to this, Mr. Ninehouse, if we deferred it till the next meeting and you could have a one-on-one with Councillor Ices, or is it time sensitive?
So it is a bit time sensitive. We wanted to get this in front of council before lame dunk. There is a 30-day period as indicated in the report where we send notice to the Conservation Authority beforehand before we can appoint an engineer. So just trying to keep the process moving along. Definitely I can talk with Councillor Ices after this as well.
Thank you. Okay, and with that answer, maybe you could respond to his question about the amendment.
Sorry. So right now it's hard for me to agree with that strictly because I'm not the engineer writing the report. The assessment is determined by the engineer, not council, not the drainage superintendent. So I think leaving it as is works unless we do benefiting landowners and road authorities maybe.
Would that make it a more clear, Councillor Ices, if it was amended to say benefiting landowners and road authorities?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how that would. So you would add benefiting landowners. And sorry, what was that? The last phrase you funded for that helps. It just it leaves the door open for part of this project to be the cost shared with the agriculture community when Mr. Nyhouse was saying that if there was some impacts that helped the agricultural community in the area, that they would still be assessed costs. And I believe in the report it says just a year ago that all of that project had already been completed. So I guess I'm a little concerned that that there would be any cost like come out of this at all. I don't believe that it would be justified. So I know that Mr. Nyhouse, you're not the engineer in this project, but I'm trying to imagine a scenario after that project just being completed where further costs would be possibly added to the agriculture community after the project's been done. I'm a little skeptical that some of those costs wouldn't be justified, and they should be allocated to the road. That's my concern.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. After living through 20 years of the South Innisfil Creek drain, I can, the process is, the Drainage Act is very important, but it's also very prescriptive and hard to manipulate from our standpoint. That's my perspective anyway. And I can tell you, I've had conversations with hundreds of households in Churchill wondering why they were having to pay their share of that. But I saw Councillor Orsatti's card, and I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Worship. Just while we're on this, I'm taking a look at the photograph for the analysis and consideration that shows the purple lines in the full report. It's page 97 out of the 165. So there's 5 properties here, 6 if you're counting the county that has the road, but the only one impacted by the realignment is 1702 Innisfil Beach Road. So in in the staff report for action, item number 3 is stating that the $50,000 funded from benefiting landowners. So is the only benefiting landowner 1702 Innisfil Beach Road, or is it the other 4 because it's going to be removed from there?
Mr. Nyhouse?
So again, benefiting landowner is a term used in the Drainage Act for someone who might benefit from the work being completed. So I do indicate that there is, I believe, 9 properties as well as 1792 and 1702 who are within the watershed. So if water falls on their property, it would enter into or use this realignment to get through the rest of the municipal drain. So in terminology, those would all be benefiting landowners. Again, it would be up to the engineer to determine if any costs were to go to landowners other than the road authority. And there is numerous meetings with landowners involved throughout the process where they could discuss this with the engineer at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Ices, did you have anything further?
No, I guess what I should say in full disclosure, my farm does farm 1702. We do not own that property, so we wouldn't be a benefiting landowner, but I thought I should make that clear in this discussion. I brought it forward more as a point of context about the road being worked on, and that I didn't think any of the costs should go to the agricultural community on this. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Berkel.
Just a comment, Your Worship, that according to the report that was, like Councillor Icy said, it was finished a year ago. I think they knew more than a year ago that they were going to realign that road, and I don't know why that wasn't taken into consideration at that time. You know, it's like doing work twice while knowing that it was going to get done. It's supposed to get done.
I don't know if it's fair to ask Mr. Ninehouse that. That's probably something we should be asking the county engineers, but did you have any comment, Mr. Ninehouse?
So through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Van Berkel, when it came to my attention that there was a realignment with the county portion of the road, it was actually myself who contacted and requested that they submit for an improvement report, so that moving forward we can maintain the new alignment properly.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 3 opposed. That's carried. And that's next. That was the only item we pulled tonight. So next is the RISE recommendation. So I'll ask that it be moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. And consideration of the adoption of the recommendations from Committee of the Whole. That would be Councillor Fowler and Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That is carried. There's no notice of motion. And so now I'll go to announcements from members of council. Any announcements this evening? No announcements? I just have one that I wanted to make, and that was the that I had the opportunity on Monday to virtually join a Global's Perspective class in Innisfil Secondary School, and got grilled for over an hour by some grade 11 students. It's just absolutely, they've done their homework, they've been on our website, they knew specific information, and they were looking at big picture items, all very politically motivated, and just, it was a wonderful discussion. And again, I say this whenever I go to events like that, our future is bright. We have some bright young minds in our future. And that was the only thing I had, except to say that we're coming up to Volunteer Week, Volunteer Appreciation Week. So a great big shout out and thank you to all of the volunteers that help out our community. There's so many of you, and so many that do double duty. You'll see them volunteering with one group and then volunteering with another. And so a big shout out and a thank you. We couldn't have this wonderful community without you. So thank you for that. And any other announcements? Seeing none, the confirming bylaw. Moved by, I've closed my list now. I'll say Councillor Payne and Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, our adjournment. That would be moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler, that we adjourn at 8:42 p.m. So thank you, and I apologize again for my my internet issues tonight, although I think when I took the Ukrainian flag off my backdrop, it got much better. So I think that must have been the problem. But thanks everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Have a happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah. Good night.